Menstrual shaming has negatively impacted women for centuries. It has negatively impacted their relationships, their health, and their general potential. But now, with so many women using menstrual tracking apps on a daily basis, I think we can use that opportunity to shape technology which can help to overcome this stigma. My name is Ronja Griep. I study for a PhD in philosophy and I specialize on menstrual shaming. I was already interested in the female body and philosophy of the female body, but I read about the women's soccer football team in the US, and they won the World Cup in 2019. And what I thought was really interesting is that they attributed part of their success to tracking their menstruation, their menstrual cycle. So they adapted their training and recovery needs to the phases of the cycle they were in. But what they also said is that they found tracking their cycles with apps a very empowering experience. So they felt liberated to talk about the menstruation. They felt more in tune with their body. I think one of the reasons why they highlighted menstrual tracking specifically is because it allowed them to get more in tune with their body. And that's something that from athlete to everyday person, a lot of women and girls don't usually do. They are very stigmatized about a lot of parts and processes in their body, so they view their body as alien or weird, or they never really get in touch with it. That's how I think it's interesting to connect the professional athlete to the everyday person and the girl in school, because both of these across generations have this dissociation from their body. And I think it's interesting how menstrual tracking apps can overcome this. So I think it's important to think about this from a philosophical perspective, because for one reason, there's an injustice in menstrual shaming that I think is important to articulate, but it's actually hard to pin down. So a lot of people conduct their bodily needs in private, right? And we don't think that's unjust. So someone may say something like, I go to the toilet multiple times a day, and I don't feel like I need to talk about this, but I also don't feel that I'm wronged in any way. And I think that's valid. It shows that the real problem is not with privacy as such. Empowered women may still conduct their menstruation in private. The problem is where the demand for privacy comes from and how far it goes. And I think once we start thinking about it this way, we see that really there's this norm body that is male, able-bodied, young, for which many spaces are designed for. And if you deviate from this norm body, as many people do, right, then you can't conduct your daily life in the same effortless way. And I think that's unjust, and I think it contributes to the subordination of women in society. One of the ways I go about thinking about this is to look at where we actually have data or stories from people who experience menstrual shame today, especially in the UK. So what kind of spaces in life and areas of life do we have data and experience on? And one of the big realms is sports, and specifically school sports. So it's one of the few parts of puberty and of youth where we have girls telling the story of how menstrual shame impacts their participation in school. There's a lot of research, thankfully, already done by great NGOs such as Plan UK, who go into schools and who interview the girls on their menstrual experience. So a lot of my research draws on this, but I also think it's nice to have the actual exchange with girls who are currently in school. And I believe the great thing about doing something like menstrual shaming is that everyone sort of has a story to tell. So whoever I talk to about the research I do, right, they will tell me how their life experience is like. Fathers tell me how their experience with their girls and daughters talking about this topic is like. So it's a mix of studies and research that has been done by NGOs, but also getting in touch every day with other people about this topic. So although Cambridge is of course a very academic place, I think it's also a great place to do this particular kind of research. One reason is that there are just activists here who already do a lot of great work around menstruation, around period poverty, and around educating women, girls and men about this topic. The other reason is that there's a lot of opportunities here locally and across the country to reach out to the girls who currently experience menstrual shaming in their school experiences. And I found that very important for my own work to do that, to get in touch with the girls and understand their experiences. And then the third reason I think why Cambridge is a good place to do that is because you have people here who develop this kind of technology. So one example is Alma, which is a company that has been co-founded by people who work here in Cambridge, and they are very keen to get anthropologists, sociologists and philosophers on board to make the best technology possible. So you are really sitting at the core of where the development is going on of new technologies, and you can influence that from its inception. I think in one way, Femtech, of course, has tapped into the market potential there is for attending to half of the population. So, and I think that's perfectly valid, right? Because capitalization and marketization can lead to positive changes, can lead to funding being allocated to, say, reproductive health. I also think that it's slightly focused at the moment on this specific niche of professional sports, because this is just where more money, I think, can be made. There are differences between this kind of technology for professional sports, where it really is focused on recovery and training needs for very specific forms of doing sports, to the everyday woman who can still gain something from this. And I think expanding it in this range will be a challenge and will need some adaptation of the femtech space to ask itself if it wants to go more into a direction of empowering every woman, rather than having empowerment be sort of a side story to the training and recovery needs.